Hi, everybody. It's Christina Quick, the Tarot Biz Mentor from the Profitable Psychic Divination and Business Academy. And today I want to talk to you about three ridiculous myths that everybody seems to believe about being psychic. So, the first myth that I want to talk about is that psychics all have the same abilities or that psychic abilities are all the same. I actually encountered this myth a lot, especially with professional psychics, and the myth is the assumption that if you're really psychic, then you can intuit anything. For example, people who are, and actually people who aren't psychic, typically don't know the difference between a psychic and a medium. That's a really, really big one. And they think that all psychics can communicate with the other side. I eventually will release another video that talks about, the difference between a psychic and a medium, but, in a nutshell, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Okay, so that's another thing. It's one of the topics I'd like to really give you clarity on, and I think that I have a lot of experience and wisdom about this topic, so I really look forward to doing that video for you guys. Or this also can come up sometimes where I'll see psychic reading clients who think that, all psychics can pick up on emotions or feelings, or all psychics can pick up dates or times in the future, or even lotto numbers, right? Like that's a really big one if you work on the psychic hotlines. And by the way, if you are interested in working on the psychic hotlines, I have over 20 videos talking all about that. I even have a free online school on Facebook called Psychic Hotline School that you can join. You can get access to all those videos. There's, scripts and templates and everything, tools, everything that you really need to get started making epic money on the psychic hotlines. Here's the thing. Here's the truth of it. When it comes to, not all psychic abilities are the same or not all psychics are the same. The truth is that psychics all have different abilities. And these abilities are unique to them. They're just as unique to them as their fingerprint or their thumbprint, right? And just because one psychic can intuit something fairly particular, it doesn't mean that all psychics can. And that's actually more than okay. It's more than okay for that to happen. And if you feel like, if you feel like less than, or you don't feel like you're actually really psychic because you don't get certain information, it doesn't mean that you're not psychic. It just means that you're psychic in a different way. It also could mean that you could, invest some of your time and energy to learn how to do certain types of readings like that. But all psychics are going to have like what they're inherently good at, and then also what they train and develop their skills in, right? So it kind of just depends on where the psychic is on their journey between their awakening and, actually learning how to develop their abilities. It doesn't make you any less of a psychic if you don't get certain information. It doesn't make you any less of a professional or any less valued as a professional. It just might mean that certain types of readings and certain professional reading opportunities aren't going to be a good fit for you. And that's all right. Sometimes it just means that you have to figure out, a better place for you to work or a better way for you to market your abilities and things like that. So it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. It's just that it's going to, if you don't have the run of the mill, regular types of popular types of psychic abilities out there, it just means that you might have a little bit more difficulty finding the marketing value of your services and your skills. But I promise you it's there if we dig deep enough. This sometimes comes up with this whole debate. I see this a lot of the times as a community leader, as someone who is also trained professionally for 4 years to the equivalent of like a college degree in psychic abilities. Also, as someone who has also ran a psychic development circle, I did that for a whole year. I took a bunch of people through a psychic development circle type of thing that I did. And um, here's the thing. Here's the reality of it. Right? It's correct that not all psychics work the same, but there is something to be said about not having a strong connection, right? Or working on developing your connection to things and thinking about different ways that you can intuit information, how you can get that information. Chances are it's not that you can't get that information, it's simply that you haven't been shown how to get that information, or you haven't been in an opportunity to get that information. But this whole like insinuation type of thing that comes around like that, it especially happens with people who psychics who ask for information prior to a reading. Like I'll see so many, like there's a lot of toxic communities and threads out there about how if you have to ask for information about a situation or a person, then you're not actually psychic. And or even psychic reading clients will kind of come from this sort of stance as well. um, the belief, the insinuation is that people that ask for information are not psychic if they ask for information. And that's simply not true. It just means that the psychic works in a different way. I've met countless people who are professional psychics who abhor getting information before a reading, that they feel like it kind of taints the reading, or it might give them too much to go off of, and they don't know that they don't know if they're really connecting with the intuition or they're connecting with their personal bias, right? But then I've also met other people on the other side of the camp that are like, yeah, give me all the information, because all the information you give me is how specific I can get and detailed I can get with your reading, right? So the truth is that yes, you can learn how to intuit and predict anything with lots of practice and strategy or learning type of method. But even still, some psychics will simply not be aligned with getting certain information. And it's okay if you aren't, and it doesn't make you any less than a psychic. And while we can work on our abilities, like our clairvoyance or clairaudience or clairtendency or guscience or claircognizances, like all the different types of clairs, clair empathy, there's so many different types of clairs. None of us will be proficient or even good at all of them all the time. And it's like any life skill, I remember back when I was a hairdresser, everybody goes to the same hairdressing school, but everybody's different, I really excelled in doing color, and I really excelled in doing men's haircuts, where other people did women's haircuts, or they wanted to do like nails, or some facials or something like that. So everybody has different interests, everybody has different unique abilities and different like levels in which that they have a natural affinity for that. So the way we can also look at it is with artists, right? Because being a psychic and interpreting psychic information is an art style. You are an artist. So it's kind of like this. Everybody can learn how to draw, but not everybody's going to be good at drawing. Does that make sense? Even more relevant is some artists are like really, really exceptional drawers, and some are really amazing with paint. So, we have to kind of sit back as psychics in this community, and we have to sit back and we have to ask ourselves, do we judge an incredible piece of art based on the medium in which it is delivered? Say, oh, yes, but only if she could draw. Picasso was an amazing painter, but only if he could draw like Leonardo da Vinci. Then he would be what I would consider a real artist or something along those lines. And that's just not how it works. So should we judge the medium of the artist, or should we judge the talent of the artist and whatever medium that they are, exceptional in? And I think personally that we should celebrate each other, and I think we should celebrate other psychics, and we should spend more time as this community figuring out what makes us special and unique and building each other up based off of that, rather than just sitting around in Facebook groups all day and having debates about whether you're really psychic or not. I mean, it doesn't really help you accomplish anything, right? So myth number 2, the second myth that I want to talk about, is that psychics know everything and are never wrong and incorrect. And this is one of my favorite myths to talk about, because it is such a paradox, because it's both true and it's both a myth at the same time. And I'll explain why. So there is this misconception that to be a psychic means basically that you have your own private like link to spy on other people all the time, or that your predictions are always 100% accurate all the time, and that you're never wrong and things like that, right? So there's a lot of, I actually put up a thread, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, in my psychic community, the Profitable Psychic. We're on Facebook. It's a free community you can join. It's for people who want to be psychic, who want to be confident in their psychic skills, and want to learn how to make a lot of money doing that. Okay, so join us. There's a description box below, or there's a pinned comment that you can find, and it'll take you directly to our group. So come on over and join us over there, because on Wednesdays we do psychic chat, and we talk about some issues with being psychic, and we talk about issues with others' perceptions, and not just clients, but other psychic perceptions as well. And a lot of what I saw was the question was, what is the biggest misconception that you wish that people would understand about psychic abilities? And hands down, the most talked about thing was that they wished other people wouldn't assume that just because they're psychic, they know everything about everything and they can tell you anything about everything, right? So, here's the thing is you might have heard me discuss before that psychics are always accurate, and that is true, but sometimes psychics are wrong as well. So how can that be? So here's what I mean. The truth is that psychics, when psychics are intuiting something, whether they're getting that through their clairs or however else they're seeing a symbol around in their environment. So I've talked about psychic symbols before. There's a video, I think right before this one, that I talk about psychic symbols and how to kind of utilize those. So whenever you're receiving psychic information, you are accurate in that moment and your interpretation of that information is correct. But it doesn't mean that your information is accurate. So there's a difference between being correct and being accurate, right? So your readings are 100%, you know, like your interpretations are 100% accurate all the time, but your predictions are not always accurate all the time. And it's okay for that to be true. Those two things can simultaneously exist and still be both true at the same time. And the way that this was explained to me was by a psychic mentor that I had for several years. And she taught me a lot about psychic abilities, and I'm really very grateful to her. And I got this analogy from her. So it's like, imagine being in a dark room, right? And you're in a dark room, it's pitch black, and there's other people in the room, and there's an animal in the middle. And you're all asked to put your hand out and touch the animal, only you don't know what the animal is. And your job is to try to intuit what that animal is. So, okay, you're in this room, everybody reaches out, everybody touches the animal in the center of the room. Some people pick up on like really leathery skin, some people pick up on hard tusks, some people pick up on soft, crepey feeling kind of ears. Some people touch a long, muscular trunk, and some people reach out and they touch the floofy tail. Now, depending on what you touch and where you touch and the proximity in which you touch, you might know right off the bat that the animal is an elephant, right? But what about the people that use their psychic abilities, or in this case, their hand in this metaphor, that touch a more inconspicuous part of the animal that's not as obvious, right? So are they wrong with what they're guessing? And the answer is no, that they aren't wrong. They might just not be, accurate in what it is. I know that that's kind of confusing. I know it's a conundrum, but here the lesson is that your psychic abilities and your intuition is always correct, but your predictions may not be. And that's not a bad thing. That's not something to feel negatively about. Some connections are easy and some come really quickly, especially if there's someone that you've read before or you have a soul connection with or some sort of karmic kind of relationship thing going on there. But here's the thing, most of the time that we're all just kind of reaching out in the dark and we're all just kind of feeling around and making the best psychic prediction that we can regarding what we're feeling. And the more that you use your abilities like that, and the more you develop them, the more refined that they become, you'll be able to actually spot patterns. So you'll reach out and say, oh, I felt this before. Last time I felt this, it turned out to be this. Okay, now I know what this is, right? So it just has a level of like trial and error to it. The third myth I want to talk about is that the myth is that psychics are always tuned in no matter what. And you hear this with baby psychics especially. I'm always tuned in. Or my empathy is like too overwhelming and I can't walk into a crowd without getting overwhelmed. And it's typically because they're underdeveloped. They haven't gone on their journey yet of learning how to control and manage and learn how to turn off and turn on those abilities. And the myth here is that we're always tuned in and always turned on, right? Psychically connected no matter what, and that it's impossible to turn off, right? So to be fair, this one is kind of a half truth, but it is true that some psychics are always on it and it's impossible for them to turn their psychic abilities off. But they're usually also people that don't want to believe in their psychic abilities, or they're at odds with it. Like, do their like religion or their spirituality or like the home or environment in which they grew up with, or other forms of conditioning like cultural, societal, that sort of thing. And so the people that really claim that they can't turn off their abilities are the people that are in absolute direct resistance to it for one reason or another. And as soon as that person that feels like it's out of control for them starts acknowledging that they do have power to control it and starts seeking out ways that they can, then absolutely that can definitely change, and it will change, and it does. And I've seen it all the time. It happens all the time. Once people start, getting serious and taking their psychic abilities really seriously, they start fixing that dynamic, and then they're like, "Wow, it was just wide open well right before, and I didn't know that I could turn it off and turn it back on and things like that." Another thing you can do is you can set office hours, especially for reading others, and especially if you're a medium. So when I was a budding medium, when I was just kind of figuring out my mediumship abilities, I would have spirits come in the middle of the night, or I'd have them in dreams, or that time, that twilight kind of situation scenario where you're like falling asleep and you start getting whispers in your ear or something like that. I really had to set firm boundaries and let spirits know that you can contact me between the hours of, certain days at certain times. And that's when I'm open to that information. Otherwise, don't bother me. And they will respond to that. They will respect that. And if they don't, then that's when you start getting really serious about upping your psychic protection, meaning that could be wearing black tourmaline or onyx or obsidian, any type of black stone or smoky quartz, or putting up wards around your house, or putting up wards in your bedroom, or putting up a circle, or, something like that, where you're really working on protecting that environment and evicting the spirits that don't want to abide by your boundaries and your rules and what you feel is the best for you. So you can definitely do that, and you can manage that. And I plan on talking about that more. I'll probably do another video on like how to protect yourself psychically for people that this part really resonates for. So be on the lookout for that as well. So I'm curious, what are some of the myths that you encounter with being psychic or about psychics? And I would love for you to share in the comments below how you've dealt with that, or how your perspective has changed since you've started working and developing with your psychic abilities. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.